Coming up on This Week in Patriots Baseball, a podcast, it's a special postseason preview as your Patriots gear up for another run at the FedBall title. Manager Keith Fischer joins us to offer his perspective on the Pats' impressive stretch run. We'll dissect both sides of the postseason bracket and break down the Patriots' first-round opponent, the Oakton Orioles. All that and more. Settle in, Patriots fans. It's the road to Povich. Here we go. Hello, Patriots fans. Welcome to This Week in Patriots Baseball, a podcast. I am your host, Chad Kurz. It is so good to be back with each and every one of you, especially knowing we're going to be talking a little bit of postseason baseball. That's right, the calendar has turned to September, which means the FedBall Playoffs are officially upon us. Who better to set the stage for what we all hope is a deep playoff run than the skipper himself? And so, without further ado, Patriots skipper number 17, Keith Fischer, welcome back to the show, making your 2022 debut at This Week in Patriots Baseball, a podcast.
Thanks, Chad. It's always great to be on the show.
All right, well, let's get right into it, but want to rewind quickly if we can. The last time that we heard from you was at the 2021 Twippies as you accepted the prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award. We got a few of your thoughts in the moment, but with some additional time to reflect, any further perspective as you think back on what that award means to you?
Yeah, actually, I truly continue to be humbled by it. The video, presentation did get around to my parents, who I think then sent it around to some of my family members, and to almost a year later, I'm still seeing some family members and like, oh, Keith, I saw your video, and they were just blown away by it, and as was I. So it was very. It meant, it's hard to put into words what it meant to me, really. And you did a great job on that, and then the whole team, really did a great job. So I can't express my gratitude enough for that, and it remains a pretty big honor.
I know everybody enjoyed being a part of it. It was certainly well-deserved, and I think even the icing on the cake will be some even bigger accolades and achievements still to come in this 2022 season. So let's pivot there as we look ahead to the upcoming, what we hope is a long and prosperous postseason run for the Patriots. And really couldn't ask to be in better form going into the postseason. A little touch and go there early in the season, but really the second half has been pretty impressive from the Patriots. What have you seen to attribute to that turnaround, and as the Patriots here are streaking into the playoffs?
Yeah, well, we're just playing with a tremendous amount of confidence right now. And, I think the main thing going into the playoffs is that we're at full strength. Right, we're not, missing any primary pieces. Obviously, I think, we'll still have to deal with some minor things here and there. I'm not sure if we'll have Will available to hit the playoffs. Like he's been limited to pitching and fielding the past couple weeks. But for the most part, we're locked and loaded and ready to go, and that's going to be a big thing for us this year.
So a big part of your approach down the stretch has been there's been great turnout at just about every game. There's been years in the past where we've struggled to get 9, 10, 11 guys. More often than not, we're looking at 15, 16, 17 guys, and that's giving you a lot of flexibility with lineups, both offensively and defensively. We've been able to platoon at different positions, wholesale changes across the infield inning by inning. What's your approach as we go into the postseason? Do you look to tighten that up, and batting order wise, are we still going to hit 10, 11, 12 guys, or are you thinking about sticking with your best 9 or so?
Well, first of all, I would say just, the level of engagement, that we've seen this year has just been outstanding. And I think honestly provides an X factor for us over a lot of the teams that we've seen here down the stretch, who are in some ways, we saw maybe limping through August. And where we're having, essentially if guys are, not committed elsewhere or out of town, they're at the game because they want to be there. They're invested in what we're doing. I think to a man, everybody, has a vested interest in wanting to see the Patriots win a championship. So it's just been absolutely one of our biggest strengths, I think, and one of the biggest reasons we've been able to turn this season around is that nobody has quit, nobody has given up. Like I said, that level of engagement has only increased as the season has gone on, and that's been a big advantage for us. And like you said, it's enabled us to really be creative, with how we do some of our lineups and things of that nature, and gives us a lot of flexibility, a tremendous amount of flexibility, especially on the infield where we're essentially rotating at every position, the whole second half practically. Going into the playoffs, it's going to be tough. We've had some preliminary conversations. We'll probably sit down this week, Sammy, Mike, and myself, and have some additional conversations as to how we're going to play that in the playoffs. I tend to see it on defense being something similar to what we've seen throughout the course of the season. There's really no not a tremendous amount of drop off at any of those positions. We were just gifted to have, like I mentioned at one point, 7, 8, 9 guys who you could plug in as a shortstop if you needed to, and be happy with it. So that's just an embarrassment of riches, certainly from any type of infield depth that we've seen on this team. So defensively, we'll probably, try to continue to get everybody active in the game where they're akin to playing as much as possible. Late innings, you might see us shying away from those straight rotations, and maybe going with a set defense in a close game for the late innings. But on defense, you might see that. Offensively, it's really tough. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks that if we're planning to hit 9 in the playoffs, I'm not sure who those 9 guys are. Obviously, it might have to do with availability. If certain guys can miss, we know we have Austin not going to be in the lineup for the first game, so that sort of opens up one of those slots. So we'll just have to take a look at it when we have the final game status report for game 1. Sometimes it makes sense to hit 10. If you have 10 guys who can rake, let's have them rake. But we do see the value in being able to turn over the lineup and having the heart of the order hit. At the same time, though, I will say that as many times as we've actually gone to 11 or 12, we've seen the bottom of the order and the middle bottom to the order be the catalyst for us in a lot of these wins and a lot of these rallies that we've been able to put together over the course of the second half of the season. So offensively, we have a lot of tough decisions to make this week and going forward, through the playoffs, and we're just going to take it on a game-by-game basis. The message to the team and the message to the guys on the team is that if you're not in the lineup, is to stay ready because again, we've only gotten as far as we've gotten because we've had 25 guys, 26 guys all pulling in that one direction, and we have 25, 26 talented guys. at all who can contribute. And when your number's called, again, you're going to be plugged in there, and you have that opportunity. So, again, a lot of tough decisions to make. I can't even answer that question more clearly than that at this point. We're going to have some more conversations as a coaching staff as we get closer, and we really see who's available on the offensive side.
What's your philosophy, Keith? Does that tend to be something that's sort of a gut feel in the moment, or are you looking at the trends and the analytics and how guys are performing? What do you lean on to help you make those tough decisions?
Well, it has a couple. Who else do we have on the bench, especially in these playoff games? Looking later on in the game, if we need to pinch run, or if there is an injury that happens and we need to put a pinch hitter in there, what options does it leave me with? If I start hitting 10, does that 10th guy could potentially be more valuable later in the game? Potentially. So that's one thing that we would look at. Again, just the makeup of the roster on that particular day, what the status report looks like, who we have available. So it is a game-by-game decision. Sometimes we will get to the field and maybe we'll see who they have pitching, and that will also dictate a little bit as to what we do. Great example was in the final regular season game where, we felt like, actually it was a great matchup for Sammy to be in there against, the righty that they had in there, kind of tossing from the side there, and went in there and continued to deliver as the game went on. So so those things, so there are those situations that happen sort of in the moment where it's just a kind of feel thing, and then we go for it, and sometimes you hit on those decisions. So it's a combination. We do a lot of planning, to be honest. I do a lot of planning and constructing these lineups. We have a shared coaching plan that we're all looking at and discussing during the week. So, we do talk about it quite a bit and try to put the team in the best position to win.
Sounds great, Keith. Let's take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll come back and we'll break down the FedBall playoff bracket, including the Patriots' first-round matchup against the Oakton Orioles. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Are you a die-hard Patriots fan? I mean, all the gear, know your stats forward and backward, and have This Week in Patriots Baseball, a podcast's theme song, as your cell phone ringtone, and yet you still find yourself wanting to get even closer to your favorite team? Now, sure, your season tickets let you hear the crack of the bat and the pop of the glove, but what if there were once-in-a-lifetime Patriots experiences that could get you even closer to the game? Well, now there are. Introducing Pats Live, giving fans the opportunity to live out their biggest baseball dreams right alongside their favorite Patriots players. Like taking BP or shagging fly balls before a game, helping manager Keith Fischer fill out his lineup card, or taking a post-game home run trot around the bases. Sliding into home is optional and done at your own risk. Pats Live has something for every Patriots fan. Get autographs and photo ops with your favorite players in the dugout. Take the stage as an award presenter at this year's Twippies. Or join the grounds crew to rake the field after another hard-fought Patriots win. Get in the action like never before with Pats Live once-in-a-lifetime experiences. Try your hand as a ball boy or ball girl. Attend a live taping of This Week in Patriots Baseball, a podcast. Or, for fans 21 and older, enjoy a round of post-game parking lot beers with the boys. We're always adding to the list of available experiences, so be sure to follow at 1210WPBR for all the ways you can get in the game. So why just follow the Pats when you can live the Pats? Pats Live. Experience is subject to change without notice while supplies last. Void where prohibited. Special terms and conditions may apply. All right, and we're back with Patriots manager Keith Fischer here on a special edition of This Week in Patriots Baseball, a podcast. It's a postseason preview, and we're going to now turn our attention to the playoff bracket. We got the left side of the bracket, the right side of the bracket. Let's go through each of those first round matchups, top to bottom. We'll start at the upper side of the left-hand bracket. It's the number one seed, the Trash Pandas, against the Nova Gridlock Trash Pandas, overtaking the Knights late in the season for that number 1 seed. And the Nova Gridlock getting off the schneid in the season finale into the win column. Certainly I would think would be decided underdogs against the Trash Pandas. But Keith, from what you saw of both of those teams, any quick read on that first round matchup?
Well, we were able to play pretty well against the Pandas this year, but they obviously had a fantastic season, especially that second half that they had as well, where they, like you said, overtook the Knights with 2 big wins there at the end of the year. So, they're a great team. They've obviously improved dramatically in the past year. They have a lot of young talent on that team, and I think most importantly, they have a lot of young, talented pitching. They're going to be very dangerous in this playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're there at the end.
Interesting stat here on the Pandas. Dominant second half, as you mentioned. Over their last 19 games, I know that's sort of an arbitrary sample size, but stick with me. 15 wins, 2 ties, and 2 losses. Both of those losses to your Washington Patriots, including that instant classic walk-off on August 3rd in extra innings. So certainly a formidable opponent, but one I don't think Patriots fans or the team needs to feel like they need to shy away from either.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's an arbitrary sample size, to be honest, because, the Pandas have been building this core of young talent as the season has gone along. So, if you want to throw out those first couple games of the season where, maybe they didn't have all of the pieces that they have now. You're probably looking at that sample size of what the team is today. So, no, they've been dominant. We've been able to play. We've been able to have success against them by minimizing with our pitching, first of all, and by minimizing our errors, right? So, we're not going to be able to. It's going to be very difficult to beat them if we're hurting ourselves. So we got to play clean baseball through this entire playoff series. But they're going to be a good team.
All right, the other matchup over there on the left side of the bracket, the number 4 seeded Shockers, who overtook the Wood Ducks on the final day of the regular season. The defending champs check in with the number 5 seed. Keith, what's your take on a tough Shockers team going up against the defending champs there in the first round?
Yeah, that's a fascinating matchup because, the Shockers have given us fits in the playoffs. So they always seem to really come correct, when the lights are on in the playoffs. So, and then obviously the Wood Ducks as well, have had a lot of success over the past couple of years. And as you mentioned, are the defending champs. They have lost a few of their key pieces from that championship run, but, I think they have some guys who, are going to be there in September that maybe haven't been there over the summer. So, that's a really interesting matchup. It's going to be fascinating to see who comes out the winner there. But those are, again, 2 very tough teams, especially come September.
Yeah, Patriots take 2 games from the Wood Ducks down the stretch in the regular season and took 2 out of 3 versus the Shockers on the regular season. And if our paths should cross again, we talked a little bit about payback from last season. It was the Shockers that ended the Patriots' run in the 2021 playoffs. So more to come on a potential matchup with either of those teams if that should come to pass. So that sets the left side of the bracket. Again, it's the Pandas and the Gridlock and the Shockers versus the Ducks in the first round. Those matchups starting this coming weekend, the 10th and the 11th here of September. All right, let's shift over to the other side of the bracket. We've got the number 2 seeded DC Knights facing off against the Flying Squirrels. We already talked about the Wood Ducks, last year's champions. Well, this matchup features the DC Knights, the 2019 champs, against the Flying Squirrels, the 2020 champs. So certainly some pedigree and playoff experience in this 2-7 matchup. Keith, what do you make of the Knights versus the Squirrels?
Yeah, another interesting matchup, and another one that kind of depends on like which teams are we going to see from these two organizations. I think the Squirrels, have been limited this year by their participation. Again, that's kind of goes back to what I was talking about before. One of our main weapons is the engagement that we have and the depth that we have on our team, and that's, I think, where we've seen some of these organizations that have traditionally been at the top struggled this year, because you have that drop off and you don't have that sort of second wave of new guys coming in. So the longevity is tough, but the Knights as well. The Knights are another team that have been around as long as the Patriots, so they're well aware of of how it works and what it takes to be competitive over a long stretch of time. So another interesting matchup there. In terms of our direct games against the Knights there, we had some pretty crucial games. It was 3 in a row right against the Knights there at the end of the year, and I was really proud of how we performed in those games. And taking 2 out of 3, I think was big for our clubhouse. Just sort of just understanding that we can compete with any team in this league. And there's shouldn't really be any team that we should be intimidated by. So it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully we'll see the winner of that game in the second round.
Well, and the matchups with the Squirrels were certainly some pivotal moments throughout the season as well. We had that tie early in the year, which at the time sort of felt like it was a potential tipping point, and the season could have gone one of two ways, and thankfully Patriots rallied and salvaged the season off of what could have otherwise been a pretty disheartening tie. We started the 10-game win streak against the Squirrels, and there was also a very dramatic come-from-behind walk-off win against the Squirrels. So, as you said, took 2 out of 3 from the Knights, some good performances against the Squirrels as well. So certainly I think confidence should not be lacking if we see either of those teams down the road in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, Chad. Not to keep on harping on this, but that second Squirrels game, or maybe it was the third actually, that time we played them, the first game of the winning streak, that was probably, in my mind, was the turning point of the season. That win, that was a game where we went up early. We went up pretty big early in that game, but they actually rallied and tied it. I think they actually went ahead at one point, but we were able to battle back late and get some key hits late and turn that around. And that was only our third win on the season at the time. So, that was a game that if you lose that game right there, you're 2-8-1, and not feeling really good about yourself after kind of giving one away. So that was a huge game for us this year. And a big turning point for us in a lot of different ways.
All right, well, let's get to the last matchup here of the first round, and it, of course, is the 3-seed Washington Patriots against the always tough Oakton Orioles. Oakton Orioles, hard to really get a read on this team because in one regard, they finished 1-9 down the stretch. So certainly some games probably that they would like to have back. But on the flip side, they performed very well against the Patriots this year, taking 3 out of 4, outscoring the Patriots by 12 runs combined over those 4 games. So it's throw the records out the window when these two teams get together. It's a team we know well, have a lot of mutual respect for, always good matchups. But this is going to be a tough first-round matchup, Keith.
Absolutely. This is. I've been losing sleep at night worrying about the Orioles the past couple of days. That's for sure. Like you mentioned, they played us really tough at the beginning of the year. You go back to that opening day game. It was a cold day. But they were able to prevail that day, and then they really handled us really well there. Toward the end of the first half of the season, during those two games, we played them back to back. Freaking Kelski couldn't get that guy out that weekend. But yeah, obviously those 2 losses to the Orioles were the 2 final losses before we really turned our season around and kind of went on that run. So I certainly feel like we're a different team than we were, during those first 3 losses. We kind of were finding our way, with this 2022 roster. And certainly it's going to be a great matchup. We had success against them when we played them later in the year, but Again, they have a long history. They have a lot of guys that could potentially be a part of that team in this postseason that we could see next Saturday. So, it's going to be a great game. Like you said, we have a lot of mutual respect for them. Obviously Kevin puts a lot of work into the league and makes this all possible for us. So, grateful to him for that. But obviously when we get between the lines on Sunday or Saturday, I should say, we're going to try to give them a bad time.
An interesting observation about the Orioles, looking back at our 4 games against them, even the game that we won, the 4th matchup, back and forth, really close games through the middle innings. Opening day, actually we had a lead through 7 innings. Orioles score 4 and win it 9-6. Our second matchup, it was back and forth through I think the 4th or 5th inning. Orioles score 5 in the 5th, and they score 5 more in the 9th to break it open. The third game, 3 in the 5th, 3 more in the 7th, and that proves to be the final margin. And even in the game that we got the better of them, they scored 2 in the 7th, 1 in the 8th, 2 in the 9th to make it a competitive, game, even though we win at 8-5. So I think it's an important takeaway there. This is a well-coached, fundamental team that does not quit, that plays, a full 9 innings. And so it's paramount for the Patriots to make sure they're ready for 9 innings and on their toes throughout.
Yeah, and it's an interesting situation because obviously earlier in the year, we didn't have the pitching depth that we have now, but you're kind of back in that same situation because you're hedging your bets a little bit. If the losing team of this game has to play during that week, so you can't plan to spend all of your pitching. You're sort of kind of have to make those in-game decisions about when to use what arms and when to maybe potentially save some arms. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. We're going to have to play sound defense like we've been playing all year. I think that's been the cornerstone of our team. The bats have come around, obviously, but we've played really great defense all year for the most part. The infield has been great, and the outfield play has been great as well. So it's going to be a dogfight. There's no doubt about it. This is not an easy first round matchup, and we're going to have to play hard and hopefully come out on top.
You raise an interesting point. The path in the playoffs is decidedly easier. I mean, this sort of sounds like common sense, but decidedly easier if you win, especially this first round game. Win this first round game, you get a full week off, get your rotation reset and on full rest. Mm-hmm. But if you lose this first round game, you got to come back on short rest midweek to play then in the losers bracket. So, and that goes for all of these first round matchups, even ones where there might seem there's a big disparity. In a 1-game setup, you never know what's going to happen, and certainly stakes are very high for all 8 teams in the playoffs.
It's essentially a must-win. So, we have to have that mentality. Obviously, we would live to fight another day, but we have to have that mentality, going in and really sort of execute that mentality every pitch. We have to be focused and like I said, as long as we play sound defense and pitch well, I think we'll be okay.
Well, Keith, you alluded to it there. The stakes of playoff baseball certainly ratcheted up a notch. And, in some respects, it feels like we've been playing playoff baseball for the better part of at least the second half of the season here. But what's your take on the tone in the clubhouse? Is there this feeling of unfinished business from how last year ended, or is it a clean slate and guys are ready to attack 2022 as its own separate animal?
I think I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't a little bit of feeling of unfinished business, or just at least let's see what we can do. I think with the the injury that Connor sustained last year, not only did it take him out of the lineup, but it just it was a gut punch for the team at the worst time, and that's just the way it was. It was just an unfortunate situation, and maybe that even carried over into the first half of this year a little bit. as we kind of figured out, what life looked like after Connor. If you think about it, our playoffs started in June. At 2-7-1. We're looking at, where's the season going? Are we going to be a bottom feeder this year? And we had to really have that mentality that every game is almost a must win. We're behind here. We gotta catch up. So we've been able to have that mentality. I credit all the guys on the team for not quitting. Like I said, when we were down early in the season, I couldn't have asked for a better clubhouse vibe right now. I think like I mentioned before, we were playing with a ton of confidence. I think we believe in ourselves. I think this second half has proven that, last year was no fluke. It wasn't just a one man show, and the rest of the team was a part of that success. And we've essentially repeated it this year. I know we didn't quite duplicate the record, but that was a pretty damn impressive second half that we had. And I think everybody is buying into it. Like I said, if you're not out of town or at a wedding or whatever, you're out the game. Guys are prioritizing being a Patriot because they want to win, and they want to be part of this organization and part of the ride that we're on. Hopefully for 5 more wins here in the playoffs.
All right, Keith, thanks for joining us, and go get them this Saturday. It's a 1:35 first pitch at Povich, your Washington Patriots against the Oakton Orioles. Keith, as always, thank you for the time. Thank you for the insight, the perspective into the clubhouse. On behalf of Patriots fans everywhere, I know we're excited for the playoffs to officially get underway, and let's make this a long run through the month of September and even into the first week of October.
Well, it's my pleasure, Chad. I really appreciate you doing this, and let's go Pats.
Well, and that's going to do it for our special postseason preview on This Week in Patriots Baseball, a podcast. Keep it locked right here for wall-to-wall coverage throughout the playoffs, and it should be a very exciting run indeed. Now, for all of us here at This Week in Patriots Baseball, a podcast, I am your host, Chad Kurz. Thanks again for joining us, and until next time, don't forget to try your best. So long, everybody.